Alright, so for the first step, you're going to want to create a reference sketch that you can work off of for the rest of your model. So to do that, you have to first source a sketch or like some plans for the vehicle. So what I do is I honestly just use a search engine and I search like the vehicle I'm looking for and then plans, or the vehicle I'm looking for and then schematics or blueprints, and I kind of look through the results and look for images that look accurate and also look detailed enough that they're usable, but with lines thin enough that it won't just pollute your screen with stuff that's not too usable. And in fact, I say that the sketch I'm using for, or the reference I'm using for this video isn't great for that like thick line issue, but it should work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the right plane in my feature tree. I'm going to create a sketch, and then if I go up here to the top with tools, I can go down to sketch tools, and then there's sketch picture, and this is going to open up your file browser, which I'm not going to show because I have personal information in there, but they'll open up your file browser, and then you just scroll over to your reference image, and then you can select that. So I'll do that real quick. Alright, so now I have my image imported into SolidWorks, and you can see that the scale is off. It's pretty huge, 51 inches, so about 4 feet long. So that's a bit bigger than our model's going to be. And there's different approaches. You can scale the image now using some math and just ratios to figure out how large the image needs to be, and you can manipulate that exactly on the left here where you can edit the sketch picture. I personally actually have shifted over to just building the model at these larger scales and then shrinking the entire model down once it's complete. And I find it's kind of inconsequential which one you do. I find when I do that, it allows me to have better control of the final dimensions of the vehicle. So once you have this created, what you can do is you can disable the sketch tool, or this scale tool, which is useful for scaling, but I don't really use it. You want to have the aspect ratio locked, because that'll mean if you make it bigger or smaller, it's consistent. It doesn't get bigger in one axis and not the other. And then I'm going to move it over so that the side view is in the top left quadrant, with respect to the origin. And once that's in place, you can just hit the green check mark and exit the sketch. So that's your first reference. So what I am going to do is I'm going to rename it to the side view, just to have that so I know that later on. And then I click on this sketch, I copy it, so Control C, go to my front plane, and Control V, and it will move it here. And you can see they're already pretty well aligned. They might be a little off though, so what I am going to do is I'm going to go to this diagonal view, because what this lets me do is I can see when I'm on, so first off, make sure you're off perspective, but now I can see both sketch views, or both reference views at the same time. So if I edit this one, it's going to show me just the normal to that, but if I go back to this diagonal and go to line and then center line, I can actually use this, and you can see I can trace it off of the side view to figure out where on the front view this lines up, and you can see it's a little below, in fact. So the sketches aren't perfectly aligned, so what I do is I create, this one's a little thick, which is why you don't necessarily want them to be too thick, but you create like this kind of bounding, and you select some key features and you draw horizontal lines to match them. And you can see like this line corresponds to this line, this corresponds to the top of the turret, and this corresponds to the bottom of the track. And then you can double click on the front view and just kind of shift it up and down until it lines up with those references. And since I'm doing the turret, I'm going to prioritize the turret's references. And it just has to be approximate. We're not going for like perfect accuracy. Well, we are, but within reason. You don't want to spend like an hour rescaling things and playing with it just to get almost no output effect. So that's the front sketch, or front reference, and the side reference aligned. And I'm going to name this into front view. And then we're going to do the same process where we copy that, we go to our top plane, and we paste it. Another good thing is to always go to File and Save, or Control S regularly, because SolidWorks has a propensity to crash from time to time, and that's no fun. So here I rotated it 90 degrees so that the front of the top view faces the same direction as the side view. And then I'm going to drag it to roughly the correct position, but this is where that aligning is really useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this, which is going to give you a top view, and I'm going to go and I'm going to rotate my camera to roughly this diagonal, so like looking down 45 degrees, and then I'm going to click on this button, the view orientation, and click on this diagonal, so that I'm looking at it downward at the 45 degrees. And then I'm going to do what I mentioned about creating like these reference lines. So this is going to correspond to the front of the fender. Hopefully things are scaled right. It looks like they may not be. This is going to correspond to the back of the fender. And then I double click this and I move it, and you can see I can align it with those, so that's lined in this direction with the side view. And then I do something similar, or not just similar, the exact same thing with the fronts, where I get this so I can see the front view and the top view at the same time. And then I'm just going to select the side of the fender, draw it down, and that's already aligned pretty well, in fact. And then I'm just going to grab this and just shift it. And since I'm working with the turret, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from the center line of the gun, which is a little hard to get exact, but it only needs to be rough. And I'm going to make sure that it goes to the center line, and that's pretty good. So I'm going to keep that. You can see that these drawings are a little thick, which is a problem, and they also are a little angled, like very subtly, but you can see that here there's a greater gap than here at the front, and that's not great, but you can get away with a little bit of deviation. Because again, like the model, you know, when you go to like a scale when you're 3D printing it, that's going to be a fraction of a millimeter. Like in this context, especially with printing dimensional accuracies, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to delete, so I'm going to go to trim, and I'm going to use power trim just to delete these references because I have everything in place. And then if I exit the sketch, I have this kind of the different views, and I'm going to work in this segment of the file, just where I can see all the views, and I can pan to, or rotate to different angles just to see like behind my model and stuff. And then I'm going to go to rename this to top view. So now I've got my three kind of reference views, and then I'm going to click the first, shift, and click the last one, and just add it to a folder and call it reference views. And there I can take this, I can just shift click all of them, and I can hide them when I don't want to see them, and I can do the opposite, I can show them when I do want to see them. So that's kind of the first step, getting all your schematics laid out so that you can work off of them. So next I'm going to be talking about something different.